as a means to push back on, quote, bullying by the U.S. Wang Di is China's ambassador to Canada. I spoke with him for his first broadcast interview since he took on the role. Here's a part of our conversation. Have a listen. Hi, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to welcome you here to studio. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Ambassador, I wanted to start off and ask you what your view is of the state of the relationship between Canada and China.
中交关系应该说我们
I think there is a very good historical foundation for the China-Canada relationship.
And what does that mean for the future of the relationship, Ambassador?
未来我们
For the future, we're full of confidence about the relationship.
因为
As I said, there is a very good historical foundation for the relationship, and the two countries enjoy great complementarities, and we don't have any fundamental conflict of interests.
When you talk about free trade, though, and the value that both Canada and China places on it, right now it's not free trade completely between Canada and China. There are tariffs in place on Chinese-made electric vehicles. There are counter tariffs that China has applied to about $3 billion worth of agricultural products coming from Canada. Are there conversations happening right now between China and the federal government about removing any of those tariffs on either side?
Well, last year, since Canada imposed unilateral tariffs on Chinese products, we have been maintaining communication with the Canadian side. But unfortunately, in disregard of China's dissuasion efforts, Canada still decided to impose those tariffs on Chinese products. So China launched an investigation, and the investigation believes that these unilateral tariffs imposed by Canada are discriminatory against Chinese products. So China launched countermeasures against that.
The Canadian government says that those initial tariffs were necessary because of a very high level of subsidization. So again, protectionist measures in China, that's their view of why they impose them. I asked the question about whether or not there have been conversations about taking those down or the counter tariffs down because the environment since October when they were applied has changed, given what's going on with the United States. Do you have any indication right now that the federal government has conveyed, for example, to you or to your colleagues, that there is the possibility that those tariffs are removed, that the EV tariffs are removed?
Well, I think the ball is in the court of Canada. The Canadian government has expressed multiple times to us that they wish to communicate with us on these issues. But of course, the federal elections happened, the new government is being formed. I look forward that in a very short future, both sides will be able to start talking about these issues as soon as possible.
You asserted, Ambassador, just jumping off of that earlier, that the possibility for that practical cooperation exists without conflict of interest, that you view there to be no conflict of interest. And I do have to respectfully challenge you, I think, because there are a lot of Canadians who have a number of concerns about China and China's conduct towards Canada and Canadians. Your country detained 2 of our citizens for more than 1,000 days and then all of a sudden released them once the CFO of a big Chinese company was released from house arrest. 4 of our citizens were executed earlier this year because of alleged drug crimes. An inquiry into foreign interference in this country asserted your country was the, quote, main perpetrator of foreign interference in Canada, and that the, quote, PRC views Canada as a high priority target. Our Prime Minister, in a debate just over a month ago, or just not even a month ago, when asked what the biggest security threat to Canada was, asserted it was China. Why should Canadians trust China to do more business with?
China and Canada conducting practical cooperation. We have a profound historical foundation, great complementarities, and we have actual needs for those practical cooperation. Because of a reason that everybody knows about, China-Canada relationship suffered setbacks in the past few years. And the causes of the event and also the merits of the case are very clear. But China now is ready to move on and look ahead. We are ready to work together with Canada to bring our relationship back onto the right track. But for that to happen, our relationship should be founded on the right basis.
首先，
First of all, China and Canada should have a correct perception of each other.
中国
China always regards Canada as our partner, and we hope that Canada can also regard China as a partner.
第二，
Second, mutual respect is important,
应该在
and
对方
we should
核心
respect each
利益
other
这些问
on
题
the
上
issues concerning each other's core interests.
相互尊重
Mutual
是人
respect
和
is a
人之
very
间打
important
交道的
principle
一
if
个
one
非常
wants to
重要的
have a
机制
relationship with another.
国与国之间
And
的
that
相互
also applies to state-to-state relations as well.
另外，我觉得
And another thing for China and Canada to bring our relationship back onto the right track is that we need to seek common ground while reserving differences in a constructive way.
中加之间有
China
很
and
多
Canada
的
have
差
a
异
lot of differences, and this is very, very normal.
因为我们有着不同的历史，
Because we are different in history, we are different in culture, and we are different in political systems, and many other factors.
但是国与国之间
But
发展关系
one very important goal of two countries to develop a relationship is to serve the interests of the people of the two countries.
中国有没有干涉
Whether China has interfered in Canada's internal affairs and whether China is a security threat to China, I have made China's position very clearly multiple times, and I am ready to share it with you here today as well.
我可以明确地告诉你
I can say it
中国
very
从来没有
clearly to
毫
you
无兴趣
that China has never and does not have any interest in interfering in Canada's internal affairs.
所以以各种莫须有的借
I
口
think it is
以似是而
absolutely
非的各种
absurd and makes no sense to smear and attack China of interfering in other countries' internal affairs with all those kind of groundless and ambiguous excuses and pretexts.
所以我想这个
I think the increasing louder voices of calling for stronger cooperation with China here in Canada represents the will of the people.
And just one final question, because if I understand what you said correctly, it is that there is a lot of opportunity for both countries if we are able to put our differences aside. And you characterize those differences as normal. The issue, as I see it, is that there are many Canadians, based on not a desire to smear China, but assertions that their own government has made, evidence provided by that government, who don't feel like the differences are normal, who don't feel like what happened to Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor was normal, or the 4 individuals who were executed because of alleged drug crimes, or foreign interference in our election system. I understand you deny that that is the case, but we have been shown otherwise by our own government. And I don't think they feel like that is normal. Do you understand that position?
就像我刚才说的
As I said, in the past few years, the reason for the cooling China-Canada relationship was very clear.
中加之间出现的问题
Problems
不是
that
中国引
happened
起的
between China and Canada were not initiated or caused by China.
如果我们
If we look back on the past few years of our relationship, I think we will be able to come to an objective conclusion.
如果你提
You
到
mentioned the death penalty for the 4 criminals in China. In China, by our law, drug crime is a serious crime.
无论是哪个国
No
家的
matter
人中国人也
which
好，加拿大人也好，加拿
nationality
大人也好，
this
或者别的国
criminal
籍也好
is of, whether they are Chinese, whether they are Canadians or from other countries, as long as they have committed drug crimes, they will be held accountable according to China's law.
在这个地方，我们应
I
该
think
看一看他们
another
所
point
犯的罪
is
行
that we should look at how much, how big the damage these criminals and the crimes they have committed have caused to how many families in China.
所以
Because of drug crimes, many families, many people have suffered seriously, and we should pay attention to their human rights and pay attention to their well-being. So that is why China has adopted a zero-tolerance policy towards drug crimes, and we have made sure that drug problem is not as bad in China as in other countries.
因为中国有
Because
14 亿
China has a
我们都是
population of
4000万人
1.4 billion, not 40 million. If drug problem is allowed to be a rampant problem in China, it will not only cause damages to China, it will also cause damages to many other countries. So the zero tolerance policy against drug crimes of China is not only for the sake of the well-being of the Chinese people, but also for the greater world, the greater good of the whole world. So now we are at a very important point of time in China-Canada relationship. At this time, one thing is very important, that is mutual trust that you have mentioned. So in order to rebuild mutual trust and deepen the trust between our two sides, both sides should make joint efforts to build up positive factors in our relationship. So on this regard, I thank the Canadian friends for their long-term support of China-Canada relationship, and I look forward to continue having their support, including the support of the Canadian media.
I don't necessarily know what that means, and I will just really quickly point out that I know you say the evidence doesn't exist. The government has told Canadians something very different, and there have been, leaks of intelligence to show otherwise. But I will leave it on that note. I take the point that you made, and I appreciate you making the time for the conversation. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.